right, so we are at meeting number 8. Okay, so thank you again for being here. I got the reins here to start, but I'll turn it over to our friends here in a couple of minutes. So let's talk a little bit about tonight's agenda. So you have some homework. Just like a good teacher, gave you all some homework. All right, so we're going to spend some time talking about that, the results that are in there. Remember, you're supposed to talk to 10 folks and then put some data. So we'll see how we did. We're going to talk a little bit about this community open house that's scheduled for next Tuesday. Okay, we're going to kind of go over that. We're going to look at some updated master plan options discussion. Got a lot more information to share with you. Okay, to put that out there, and then we'll roll with next steps. We put a nice update today from the last 2 meetings on our webpage, so make sure you get on there. It runneth over, but that's okay. Keep showing people there. That's all good stuff. See if my clicker's going to cooperate with me here. Give me some love around. There we go. There we go. All right. So last week, I had to step out for a few minutes, if you'll recall, but you had some great representatives from OFCC answering some of your questions. We took a look at master plan sites and some LFI discussion. We did a little bit of voting, as you remember. We talked about community input opportunities, one of them being going out and talking to folks, the other one being this community event next week, and that was the final bullet there. All right, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our friends from TDA.
You were doing so good, I thought you'd just roll with it.
I probably I need to pass it on. So we're going to talk about your homework, take a look at some preliminary data, right? To see how we did. All right, you got it.
So the charge was to try and reach out to at least 10 community members, and it looks like as of now, a lot of you were, how many? 61 submissions have been uploaded that we'll review high level here in a few minutes. Was there anybody who had well, how many people were able to talk with community members? Let me ask it that way. Yay. Awesome. Okay, so we really want to spend the next portion of this presentation just having an open dialogue about some of the feedback that you heard on that. You were given a packet, information packet, asked to collect the data, post it up online, which we're going to look at now. So this was done earlier today before all of the more submissions have come in since then, correct?
Correct.
So it might change. This looks like 43 people had, and now you said 60.
Yep.
60, right. So we've been watching this, and it's kind of been moving and jumping, so it'll be interesting.
Right before the meeting, we had a very large influx of submissions, as homework tends to be right before the deadline right now.
Did you?
I missed that completely. I talked to my 10 people. I missed completely where
That's
we were
okay.
supposed to go.
You can turn it in tonight to
Okay.
us. That's another, you know, it's not all done and over.
And Cheryl, we're going to keep the link open because this is going to be continuous as we want things to be continually inputted in here. And so this channel will be open as you continue to have discussions and meet with new people. So we do urge you to collect all information in there. And we do want to know, and Mr. Madison, if you can share too, just ways that you did engage, what worked, what didn't. Is there information that was missing or questions that came up during your conversations that can help us as we build out additional materials leading up to the open house, as well as you continue discussions? So if I could put you on the spot, Mr. Madison, but I'd love for you to share what you did to encourage outreach.
I did a write-up that explains some of the factors that we've been considering in selecting sites and arriving where we are right now with our 3 plans. Just real basic stuff that we're all knowledgeable about, but the people maybe aren't knowledgeable about because they're not here. And then I made copies of the 3 proposals and stapled it to the write-up. I copied the template, the 5-question template or 6-question template, and I distributed that to all the staff members here at the high school. And I told them all they had to do was fill out the template and give it back to me right today.
How many responses did you get with that approach?
How many?
It's okay.
Well, you know what, I'm usually pretty optimistic, so I was disappointed that I didn't get as many as I hoped. I think maybe 15 or 16.
So you well exceeded the 10.
Yeah, but,
In terms
you
of
know,
getting responses back.
but I know that I handed out 77
Oh.
packets.
Well, it isn't over yet.
And I thought
so-
for sure I'd get 75 back, and that didn't happen. So, yeah, and, you know, I don't, you know, teachers are busy and that kind of thing, so I'm sure they care. It's not an indication
Right.
that they don't care. I don't think that would be how I would interpret that. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and were there any surprises of those responses that you got back?
Yes, there were a couple surprises. Probably number one would be, and it's a surprise because I didn't expect this. The majority chose number 7, proposal number 7, which is bringing 7th and 8th grade to the high school. And quite a few, you know, where you explain why did you choose this? Over and over again, the reason was they thought that academically, that would be best for the 7th and 8th graders.
But now, were these primarily teachers that you were talking to that maybe had more?
Well, I don't know precisely who, because it was just, you know, there was no place for a name or anything.
Right.
It was a staff member. I think just through reading through their comments that a lot of the people who handed the template back were our support staff, our custodians, and the kitchen workers and that kind of thing. And I don't know how many were teachers. I have no way to know.
But they were school.
But just by the way that the comments were written and some of the things that they mentioned specifically, I could tell it wasn't a teacher, but I couldn't tell who they were. So, and, you know, another point that was made, this was in a conversation I had with a neighbor. And the neighbor also said that they would prefer plan number 7 through 12 school. And they made a point to me I never thought of. They just thought that that there would be less bullying if the 7th grade was, and the 8th grade was in with the high school. They talked about some of the experiences they had as a parent going through middle school. And they just thought it would be a better situation to have 7th through 12th grade together, that there'd be less bullying.
So so I'm assuming that they're saying that it's the older 7th and 8th grade kids that are bullying the 5th and 6th graders? Is that what
Yeah, that,
your takeaway is?
and they made the point that, you know, when the kids get to high school and they're more mature, that they have less tendency to do that. And there'd be less of a chance maybe for that to happen, so. And I also talked to 4 people who, when they were in school, they went to a school that was 7 to 12, and they thought it was great. And I asked, well, did they keep the kids separate from each other? And they said no, everybody was just in the building. So I was surprised at that. So.
Other feedback?
I think people that I talked to are looking forward to it. They've heard some things that I haven't heard, you know, that we haven't discussed here, and that was probably the honest thing, is that some people have heard different plans than what were even in the paper, or rumor, or whatever. And my reply was, that's why you need to come, and you need to recruit a couple of people, so you can hear it firsthand, so you can ask firsthand. And it's not even close to being decided yet, because it's still got some layers to go. But if you really want to have an impact, come this week. And so the feedback was positive in that respect, other than different things that I heard, and it's not worth talking about.
Go ahead.
I'll just add to that, we hear a few quirky things that we haven't talked about, but the consensus I was getting, it's not very detailed, but everyone was happy. Doesn't matter if it was 3 schools, 2 schools, 2 or 7. They were happy to know that everyone was here, that we came up with good ideas, the consolidation, that something's going to happen, or hopefully will happen. And they're happy with like we talked about, weren't sure if the community would come out with out of left field with something completely different, and everyone kind of gravitated to eat. If it was the 3 schools or the 2 schools, they gravitated to one of the options, and even if they didn't agree with the other 2 options, they still were like, those are actually very good, legitimate ideas. Like, they're like kind of covered everything, every option you probably kind of would have thought feasible for the district, which is a good thing.
Others? In the back?
I think my feedback that I got was a little bit different than Mr. Madison's, simply because I talked to a different group of people. So I talked to more elementary-based people with friends of mine with kids in elementary school and middle school, other staff members at the elementary school, and they're more on board for the separation of the building in 3 ways, so the elementary, the middle, and the high school. The biggest question that I continue to get from people was the breakdown of the income tax per family, like what does it look like? And I know that was, you know, we keep talking about how money is the biggest thing of why it didn't pass, but it really wasn't the full dollar amount, it was the increase of cost. And so I think if we break that down, the increase of cost, then they might be more apt to get on board. Continuing to talk about it in a positive way and just give that the straight facts. So people are already starting to hear some negative things from my conversations that I heard. You know, they were asking questions and I kind of set things straight as to know that wasn't discussed or decided. I think because the master plan say pre-K is throwing people off a little bit, so they think we're bringing in a full public pre-K system. And so I kind of had to clarify that to a few people who were confused. So just laying all that out and making it clear, I think will help to not sway, but make it clear for their votes either way.
And those last 2 items we have on the agenda really to clarify. So we will be addressing the cost per homeowner, and we're proposing just to take the pre-K out since it's such a minute amount of special needs population that's so small. So, right on, spot on. Yes.
And I think, if I could mention too, Cheryl, another thing that we would love to hear from you now as we're kind of talking about the feedback that you've had, is there information gaps that you had to fill in repeatedly? When you were talking to individuals, something that was missing from the packet or that was unclear, so that we can better communicate that when we come together in April. So feel free to reference some of that, and I think pre-K, came up in our discussions as we were over the last week as well.
In the very back, you've been raising your hand in the corner.
When I talk to people, especially the older population, they don't understand how bad the conditions of the existing schools are. So I think we need to talk about how they're not sufficient for the kids to go to school. My daughter goes to CH, and it's amazing that the teachers are doing what they're doing with the conditions of the building. I mean, it's hot in there, it's 100 degrees sometimes, they have no air conditioning, kids are laying down on the floor and they're spraying them when it gets hot with the lights off because it's so hot in there, and people don't know about that. So I think if we talked a little bit more about that, we might get some more support.
We definitely do need to figure out a way to communicate this more to our senior group in the community, because they're obviously not on social media. But I did reach out to a lot of people, like Marie did, especially at the elementary school. And one of the concerns is getting misinformation online. They're showing me snapshots of posts, and that is not correct. And as a group, we're here doing work to achieve a goal, and that is to help these students. And they're not going to benefit if we put out information, snippets of things, or your perspective. We have to keep it positive, and we have to focus on the facts and not confuse the public, because when they're confused, they're not going to vote for it anyways.
You were talking Facebook, I assume?
Yes.
So people from like this group.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just have someone reach out and ask,
Yes.
they said, has there been any talk about just, and I said this is a good question I'll ask, just the middle school, the brand new middle school, and CH Campbell dealing with, I wasn't sure if she meant new or probably a new one. Like if we just replace those two buildings, what would that look like? And I said, oh, that's a good question. I mean, because we could still play around with things, right? I said I would put it out there and see and ask, because those are the two worst schools, we would say, right? CH and middle school. So, you know, I'm hearing a lot of cost issues and, so like, what is the absolute need? And then somebody said, I think the need, and I'm not that familiar with CH, but CH in the middle school, so has that been talked about? I'm like, well, those two, no, we actually did, and the high school kept popping up, this with the high school last week. So I said, well, I'll ask and see, like, what does that look like, have we explored that?
And did you submit that? Is that part of?
I did not.
Okay, we'll get it from you, and I know they're taking notes. I think you've been waiting for a while. We'll go
Yeah.
back to, and then we'll go back again.
So I approached this a little bit differently, in that just for me, I had a really crazy week. So what I did was, you know, I shared the PDF with neighbors and friends and acquaintances, and you know, just basically first contacted them and said, hey, would you be interested in helping me, you know, with providing feedback? So I just kind of gave them the PDF that you sent to us and asked them to review it, and before they did feedback, to call me with any questions, if I could clarify anything and stuff like that. So I don't know how many people responded. I don't know if you're tracking by.
But you didn't get any questions?
Well, yeah, I did,
Okay.
and that's what I was getting to. I just wanted, so I don't have, you know, full feedback from everybody that responded. I don't even know how many of them really did. A lot of them told me they did, so, you know, hopefully they have some. One of the big things that kept coming up is, what are the plans for the disposition of the old schools once they have been decommissioned, abated, demolished? A lot of people want to know what's going to happen with those properties, you know? And I have some surface knowledge of that, and I answer to the best of my ability, but ultimately the answer is, that's going to be up to the board once we actually get a levy. If we're doing something, then at that point, the board is going to have to decide, you know, what's going to happen with those properties, because it's owned by the school district. And, you know, I think, you know, I know we can't know what we're going to do until we know what we're going to do, but I think that it would be valuable if there is some kind of official answer as to the board would prefer to this than that, you know? I think that's something that kept coming up.
A list of options that we could explore, just something to give them, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah, so, that was the main feedback that I kind of got.
I think, I'm sorry, no, you were next, and then, yep, there was somebody in the back after you. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. And I apologize if I came in a few minutes late, somebody already mentioned this, but when I was talking with people, there are a lot of parents that have kids that are in, you know, the elementary school, or kids that aren't quite in school yet. And a number of them, well, and even middle school, high school, they said, oh, I can't go because, you know, I have to take so-and-so to, you know, sports, or I don't have a babysitter, or I was getting a lot of excuses about why people can't go, which, you know, was a little bit sad to hear, but there were a couple people that, you know, might go. I was wondering, did you send something out, because I didn't get that email, so I didn't have anything to go off of to talk to people about?
I sent an email out that had your homework and
Last Friday.
a flyer similar to this.
I did not get that,
Okay.
and I ended up getting a text message from somebody
Yeah, I
that
could
had
get,
the
I
flyer,
could get,
so
I could get
at least
an
posted
email
that.
address from you then.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, we've had some pretty good success. Channel 33 and Channel 27 picked up our press release that we put out, and it was on their social media and on their webpage, which was good. I sent this document to the churches. Hopefully, some of you might see that on Sunday at church. I don't think people are going to print the flyer, but hopefully your pastor, whomever, will at least maybe mention it as an option. Obviously, in our social media, we've been hitting it up 2 or 3 times already. So I'm hoping, you know, through our channels that the word's been out. in my Tuesdays, I put a little of it in my Tuesdays, if you're a mall ball area, I put that out there too, so.
Did you hear back from the review, were you able to get?
Oh,
some
yeah,
feedback?
I forgot about that, and thank you for that, yeah, that gentleman, I can't remember his name right now. When I called
Yeah.
him, talked to him, and he said it was gonna get in his paper as well. I don't get that publication, so I don't know if it was in.
You know what, at the, they have it at the post office, and
Okay.
I think a lot of retired people come in there and they
Good.
pick it up, and, you know, I think it's a free publication.
What did you call it? The review?
It's called the
The
review.
review.
Yeah. So that was good.
Yes.
So I
Oh,
talked to two different
yeah, I'm
groups.
not
I talked to a
sure,
group
but
of mothers
I know we're-
that had kids in grade school,
At the review.
and to a person, they said, I'll vote for
Yes.
any of these three plans, but also to a person, they said, plan number one was their favorite because they kept the kids in separate age groups, and they liked that. I also talked to some seniors, and a much smaller group of seniors, but to a person, they were all really happy to hear there was at least one plan in there where one of the schools was being preserved. It wasn't gonna be torn down. They found that, I guess, refreshing is a good way of putting it, so, you know, they may be able to buy some. And then the last thing of these, and these were all mothers I was talking to, they asked if babysitting could be provided Tuesday night.
They want me to babysit for them?
I didn't know whether.
Hey, I wear a lot of hats.
It gets well, you have some guest honors.
Well, yeah, we can reach out, I can give it a try.
Available to take one, if it gets people in.
What is today, Thursday?
Can I get a picture if you're gonna babysit?
Yeah, get a picture of that.
Yeah, at least two pictures.
Don't ask my wife, I'll let you.
Maybe not kids in diapers, but, you know, to free up some of them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's very good Yes, go ahead.
I tried to get to like people that I didn't know, so people I don't social, random people that I did not know that, you know, were involved with school, and everything else is kind of along the lines, except two of the people that I talked to, what they brought up is, you know, if they're going to vote yes to anything, regardless of what the plan is, like they went through the whole process, picked the plan, they want to know what the board is going to do to make sure that the schools don't become in the situation they're in now, that they're going to have to put up that, right? So I think there's a big thing, like, if you want me to vote yes, you have to tell me what you're gonna do, that I'm not gonna have to vote yes again in 20 years because you let buildings fall apart.
So information about the required
Right.
maintenance levy and,
Yeah.
yeah, they have to.
What the
know.
board's plans are to make sure we don't have this.
Go ahead.
I echo that because I had got it put into the Campbell Presbyterian Church website and everything, and last night we had a Seder dinner, and people were coming up to me and asking from things that they've seen and heard. They're very concerned with sustainability down the road, just like this gentleman was saying. They felt that if there was two schools, more money would go into both of them, you know, to have better security as a whole. Because we have a different demographic from parents with young children to have, you know, grandparents in the church. You had people that said, you know, that they went to school where they had, you know, different grades, not just 9 through 12, and they had a very positive experience. So they weren't against that, but sustainability was a big thing. You know, however you want to word it. Don't come back to me in 20 years, and if, you know, if we do things here, can we build, you know, if we had to, another high school on this property, which we could, and then take this one down in 20, 25 years. If it came to that, but the whole idea is, are we gonna maintenance these buildings so that we don't have to come down to ripping everything down again?
Yes. So most of mine, wanted Plan 1, the three same thing that we've heard, because they're all about like parents' age. And they like the three schools, they like where they are. They did like the idea of consolidating the elementary. I had a lot of feedback for that. They're really excited about that. So there's a lot of excitement about that. Kind of piggybacking off of backup plans, kind of like what we would do with the schools. I did hear two different people say to me, if they are because they both use the term doubling down. So some of the older people think it's kind of like a double down situation from the last levy. They said, what are they gonna do if it doesn't pass? And I didn't know how to, quite honestly, I had no idea how to answer that. So that is something that's going through the minds. And then one other person asked about the security issue, or not security, the police issues being out on Shields Road. We would be under the jurisdiction of the sheriff, Mahoney County Sheriff, is that correct?
Yep.
So we would no longer have the Canfield Police addressing any school issues at the middle school. And that seemed to be, and they're a middle school parent, so they actually were
That was
concerned about it.
concerning.
That was concerning, yes.
Well, just so you know, the township actually helps support our SROs, which is really nice.
But response time for like emergencies,
You mean having an SRO there, or just the
No.
Canfield PD? getting
like
it?
actual
Oh, okay.
response,
I'm with you.
yeah,
I'm with you.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Somebody in the back, let's go with the lady in the glasses and I'll come back to you.
I just wanted to share that we distributed it, the flyer, and morphed into a black and white for cheaper printing, and we sent it home with all of our preschool families. So we seem to have some pretty good engagement of people showing up. And then I also emailed it to 2 other local preschools in Canfield and asked them to distribute it with their families.
Wonderful. I mean, it sounds like there's been a big outreach in just a few days. Go ahead.
I guess just to piggyback off your question about safety, because obviously with the incidents earlier last week now,
That's probably what prompted it.
is, well, I've seen it a lot online. Like off your question, if the school is built on Shields Road, I'm assuming both police departments would respond. But how, do you know how that would work if someone is gonna ask us for safety concerns, like the sheriff would? I know the sheriff's department has a building right on the green already, but how does that work with the SROs that are already, I think they go through the city of Canfield's police
Well,
department?
yeah, what I was saying is the
Place, or-
township actually financially supports our SRO,
Yeah.
okay, no matter where they're at. So, I mean, I'll get clarification if we end up there, I mean, if that's where we end. But right now, I guess my answer would be, since they have some skin in the game as a township, I don't think there's any way they're gonna say that SRO can't go there. in
Well,
that
that's
building.
that's what I'm just saying, does one of them have to become a sheriff then? Since they all go through the city
Yeah,
police?
that's something that we'll have to work our way through.
I think that's what people are asking,
Yeah.
safety concerns.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we-
trust me, if there's a problem, the cavalry is coming.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only question I
I don't
have is,
think-
what's the SRO look like?
Yeah, I don't
in
think
the
the
building?
Canfield police is gonna care about where that city line is.
Nobody does at that point.
We still only have, how many SROs are out there?
In our district right now?
Yeah.
We have 2.
Two.
We have 2.
So they split their time between schools, is that right?
Well, they're manned at the middle school and high school, and then they
Okay.
jump down at the elementary schools, like pick up, drop off time throughout the day. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I talked to the chief just about this today, and I don't announce this enough, but I did today, if you're on my Facebook and Instagram, get there. They have 2 or 3 policemen that work the day shift, and those folks are in our buildings a lot. Now, y'all don't know that or see that maybe, but the chief has given me that commitment from the day I walked into Canfield, because that's one of my priorities, to be honest with you. So even though we don't have, quote, an SRO maybe in that building all the time, his people that work the road do a lot to support us as well. And I posted that tonight on Facebook and Instagram, just because a lot of parents, I don't say that enough, and I should be saying that more. So I took that shot today to do that, because you guys are in good hands, Canfield PD. Let me just say that, you're in good hands.
Was that in the school districts or your personal?
What's that?
Was that in the school districts or your personal?
No, district, I don't do personal stuff, it's all all I do is Canfield local schools stuff.
That's fine. I was
Yeah,
just
I'm not a
making sure.
guru, you know.
We'll get you next. Right after, go ahead.
I forgot, one of my neighbors that I spoke with wasn't even aware that it was, this meeting was coming up, but I spoke with her and, her husband may attend now, but they have kids who are graduated and in college now. So they don't have kids that are in the Canfield School District, even though they live here. So I think, kind of what I got from that conversation was, why should I vote yes? How does it benefit them? And, I haven't heard a whole lot from like kind of a marketing standpoint why this should benefit our community, or why would I vote yes kind of avenue? Is that something that's going to be
Yes.
approached at some
Yes,
point?
it will. Once we come to, when the bond campaign is launched out, that'll be part of the strategy and answering those questions. The same thing as the outreach to the seniors, all the people, trying to show that everybody does have a vested interest in this project, even though they don't see it.
And the other part is community partnerships. I hit you guys with that 2 or 3 weeks ago. Those are great opportunities if we can come up with some ideas. What's in it for me as a senior citizen? Here's a community partnership right on this campus, whatever that might be.
And
Hopefully we can get
a lot of times that can come after, we
Yeah.
don't have to have that solved right now, but that
Well,
can happen.
my response was the value of their property.
That's
Because
the truth.
I lived in a previous school district where the schools went downhill and property values plummeted, and, we sold our house for much less than we purchased it for. So, my concern is now we moved to Campfield because the schools are so great, and now we're having trouble passing levy too, and I'm worried that now my property values are going to go like this because we can't pass a levy.
So maybe adding a page that's, what happens if we don't pass this?
Right, which was
What,
another
what,
person's
what does
question.
this look like for our kids and our community?
Okay, go ahead, you've been waiting patiently.
So, is it true or not that Canfield Local Schools does not support Facebook?
Here's what I can tell you. Me and my communications director, whose office is right there, runs the Canfield Local School District Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram account. Yours truly, I can only do Facebook and Instagram. That's all I can. I'm not a Twittery or whatever you call them. But between myself and Ms. Renee English, that's what we do on social media. Does that answer your question?
A little bit, but I have a question that goes back to that as well.
Okay.
If there is a thought within the community that we do not support Facebook, then why would people believe that the account supposedly for our school district is really approved by our school district, and it's not a spam account made by somebody else?
I gotta be honest with you, I
Are you
don't
talking about
understand
Canfield
the question.
Yeah,
He just said he runs it.
we know that, but we also know that there's people that make up accounts. Does
Oh, like
everybody-
somebody else can make up a Canfield local school district. You know what, that's possible. I learned that after talking to Renee. We haven't had a lot of issues with that, honestly, though. We've had a couple little crazy things happen. But most everybody kind of locked in with us, knows it's the school district putting that information out.
I think you should always, people in the community should always know, his secretary is amazing. You call in there, she'll answer a question.
Ms. Hagman's
If
on.
you call in there and say, hey, I've seen
Yeah.
this on Facebook, is this true? She's gonna be like, we didn't post that, or we did. The community could always reach out to the individual schools. We have great secretaries that are amazing, that would, I'm sure provide information and help that.
Right. Now, I'm not saying I haven't messed up in my time. I'm still kind of learning all this stuff, but I'm getting better. But really, all I do is I put out good stuff about the district. That's it. It's all positive PR kind of things and updates and community meeting. So if you see something really funky on there that's not related to any of those good positive experiences of Canfield, that's a problem. But I haven't had many calls saying that, to be honest with you.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes, sir.
Just to add to what you're saying right there, I think that we all need to be conscious and aware of how important what we say is. Whether it's here in a meeting where it's being video recorded, or on social media.
Good point.
And I think that, I'm not on social media, but I've read some things, I've had people tell me some of the things that they've read on there. And I think that if you're on social media and you're discussing and you're making statements, you need to ask yourself, is what you're saying benefiting what we're trying to do? I think, but before you make the statement, is it helping our cause? Because somebody told me some stuff that's on there that isn't helping our cause. It just can't be. And sometimes if you express your opinion, you gotta remember, that's your opinion, it's not necessarily fact. So, yeah, I think that's important for everybody to keep in mind.
Kim, I know you're.
If we kind of shifted this, when we talk about like the benefits of the levy with safety, we start to bring in some things. I know I emailed you this week.
I emailed you back today.
You know, and I'm not saying everything, but we explore some safety things and we shift it. You still get with all the wants, you get some wants, but there's some safety things and you push that this is what we're changing. Here's what we need to upgrade. Nothing is free. I think in the world today, especially everyone gets, you know, into the next one, this could shift where people that were like, I'm a no matter what, I'm a no, they're gonna be like, we do need to make these schools safer. I mean, maybe not, but we do need to.
100% need to be safer.
Yes, and
Very
maybe
much
it's
so.
not, I think anything we come up with, from metal detectors to bulletproof stuff, doors to whatever, there's gonna be a way around it. I mean, you can always come up with, yeah, here, if they just said, you gotta think this is terrible, but you need to think like, I'm the shooter today walking in. And we come up with things more than, I mean, the vestibule's good, but more than that. And it's like, you know what I mean,
To that, Kimberly,
to shift it to like,
we
this
have a
is the safety
tactical
part.
force in Campfield, and they
Yeah.
just actually visited the preschool and did a threat assessment for me. And I'm sure that they would be involved in that, in the new school. So I don't think that falls on us to come up with like a roundabout way around it, but we can assure the public that, you know, in building a new building, we are taking safety and
We
and
like,
security into.
we talk about that, because it's like nobody wants to talk about it, but maybe people be more up to it, yes, if it's like.
No, it's a good talking point
You know,
with new
it's
facility,
not-
100%,
And
100%.
I won't go into full detail because we'll move on, but I did detail to you some of the safety protocols that are standard in new buildings, which unfortunately, in the buildings that we've seen these shootings happen, the majority of them are older, and they don't have those safeguards in place that are standard mandated by the.
But they're more highlighted, like curved walls or something, like they're more highlighted.
There's passive and non-passive, but
You
we'll.
know, and is it
yeah.
like fear in here, you know, when people get scared, but you're talking about, it, so people are like, wow, they are talking about it, they're having that conversation. You know.
Good point, go ahead.
Dennis brought up something online about vestibules being on glass, and I agree with what he said. Is there anything that says that vestibules have to be all glass like that? Because that is obviously a weak point, that's what happened.
I will have to look, I can't answer that, but I know we're,
Because
the
someone
design.
said something about bulletproof glasses, and I know how heavy bulletproof glass is. And with young children, they are harder to open and close, and then someone brought up automated doors and stuff. I mean, is there other ways around this to make, because the vestibule is a weak point. Other fire doors are secure because they can be heavier, they're only used for emergency. But the front door is one that everybody uses. Is, you know, you can have interlocking doors, but they're still weak.
Right.
They're not
There's
structurally
films,
strong.
there's laminated glass, there's a whole host of materials that we will explore when we're in design about what level of security, even ballistic level 3 glass can be broken through. It buys you time.
You get seconds back, yeah.
Yeah, but so does some other measures, like I said, with the films and so forth. So it will be explored in depth, that went into the design with the safety.
Is bullet-resistant polycarbonate included in your exploration?
I will have to look. Right now, Ohio School Design Manual, and we're actually part of this, we're helping them as we speak, put an entirely new chapter in the design manual dedicated to safety and security. And we're working with national, we're referencing national standards for safety and security in schools. So we don't know what all that's going to turn
My
out to be.
husband's company puts in vestibules for schools. Well, that's one of their things that they do, and they use the bullet-resistant polycarbonate, so that's why I was curious.
Gotcha.
If that's an option.
Go ahead.
I don't know if anyone else saw this, but it was on the news the other day. I just found it intriguing, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but they have these things that now are like on tracks in the classroom. You can use it as a whiteboard, but in need, you pop it open from the corner of the room.
It's like a shelter.
And it creates like a bulletproof area within that room. And I saw that and I'm like, if we're building new schools, man, we need those in our classrooms.
They've been around for about 10 years.
Have you
It's a
seen
safe
those?
room. I have not seen it in Ohio at all.
I mean, if they truly work like that, they are $50,000 too good to be true.
10,000?
50,000.
50,000 per room?
Per room, yeah.
Yeah, 50,000, that's a lot.
Well, maybe if you put more in, you can get it.
You wanna make that check?
And going, might as well have like 3 resource officers in every school.
Yeah, so you can pay it off a lot faster.
I mean, but that's, like, we move money around, like, I know we have, and that's what I brought to Cheryl, like, we talk about all these additionals and private funding and stuff. What if we have conversations and we ask the precious Jim, like, again, I know I don't have kids, so I don't feel the pain of that. And we talked about the cost of an SRO and everyone, or whatever, anything with safety, like, the wall thing, whiteboard, or, you know what I mean? I don't know everything that's out there, but we have a conversation, like, here, it's gonna be listed, guys. It sucks, but at least it's an option, like, it's not even options.
Well, just think of it this way, okay? We have a pot, a circle of money that we can do many things with. It'll be competing priorities. We want, if it comes to the decision that we want to put in ballistic level glass on all the first floor or just certain areas or whatever, that's fine. So we've pushed in, so now something gets pushed out a little bit. So it's a push and pull, but that's how most districts approach it. They don't necessarily put in and go through this process in the beginning. They're like, we'll figure it out in design and we'll identify.
So that's a design section, okay,
Typically,
so that's
that's
where I'm
what-
thinking, we're talking money now, and
No.
what goes to what, is in design.
You guys plan about a year, right, to go through that whole planning process. I
Right.
mean, it takes time, but it's
It would
good,
be
it's good
different if
time.
you're saying every glass window in this 2-story, 200,000 square foot building is going to be
Well,
leveled
the
with
second
ballistic glass.
story
Then
is
now we're talking,
happen.
but that's extreme and it's, I don't even know how often that's done.
Well, yeah, the second story makes no sense.
No. Okay, say, hopefully this does pass, and it becomes the designing phase. Who's involved with that? Is that just the BOE and you guys?
That's a
Or
great
is that reached out to the community as
That's a
well?
great question. There's actually templates and a whole game plan online that goes over that, but, I mean, to me, it's everybody, man, we're all in. And you bring in the experts, we
I
talk
mean,
about
will
the
we have
tactic.
meetings like this, go over that again?
I have no idea what it's gonna look like. I
Even
don't,
parents will
but
probably
stuff like this
Well, the way
absolutely
we
needs
work,
to happen.
I'm sure, John, you do the same thing. You always involve the community. When we're talking about the interior design, we really focus on staff and teachers, because those are the people who are using the space. But especially on the exterior, the position on the site, what will it look like? Always, always have communities' feedback and voting preferences, which I know you guys just love, being sarcastic. But that type of activities, and it goes all the way through that process of design, which is usually a year. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, we also, and I know our firms are sort of similar, you know, we also have user group meetings where our user group typically involve community members, teachers, and students, so that we get a broad view of what Canfield Local Schools thinks about what their new schools are and what their new schools can be, and how they relate not only to today, and I really appreciate the superintendent, assistant superintendent looking into, you know, a couple weeks ago, they talked about the 712 and how it doesn't work right now, right? I appreciated that, and I think that we have to remember that kind of stuff, that we talk about things right now, right? But we also talk about things in 20 years when we're designing these school buildings. And the last thing that we do is we talk a little bit about memory, right? Memory of place also becomes important when you start to talk about, you know, what happens when we get rid of the middle school. You know, there's memory there that people want to maintain. Even though the building may be gone, there's memory. So we try to work across those three sort of spectrums. Of course, the educational direction of Canfield today is critical, as well as the education of Canfield, the education of education in Canfield in 10, 15 years. So that's where that involvement of superintendent, assistant superintendent, board, community, and teachers, as well as the students, become really critical.
I love that you brought the student into that
Yes.
conversation. We've used the students to design
Yeah.
corridor, courtyard designs, playgrounds. There's so many ways that your youngest members of the school district can be involved and have
Sometimes
input.
they're not influenced,
Right.
especially the younger they get.
Yes.
Wait, Cheryl, there's oh, sorry. She's been waiting for a while. She's
You're
probably
ne-
blocked.
You're next.
I don't think she can see it.
Yeah, she's behind the pole for you.
Okay, so I guess as far as safety is concerned, I think we could talk about that for a long time. But I thought we were here to come up with something to put on the ballot, and I was always under the assumption that safety was gonna be a #1 priority. So with that, I thought 2 buildings would make the most sense with the SRO officers, because I feel like intruders can find their way into anything, but someone on site is gonna be important. So I'm just gonna leave that at safety, and then going back to the marketing and the way we talk about things, I think oftentimes we just say it's about the kids, but we need to say it's about a couple different things, and one is the community and how we will suffer if it doesn't pass. And it's about the staff and the students. So we need to market all of those areas rather than just the kids.
Well said. Dennis, and then the gentleman in.
Yeah, using this,
Hey,
using this building as a good example, you can't just simply secure the vestibule. Kim, if you turn and look right there, you've got about 6 of those situations around the building that aren't manned or camera ready and so on. And so you have to involve more than just the vestibule. Any of these windows, you can blow right through them. We saw what happened on the TV in Tennessee there. So that's when we started talking about having vestibules that didn't have windows low, get natural light in by putting them up higher. The 7 through 12 I taught in had windows, but they're only at the ceiling. They're about 18 inches high from the ceiling down, about the same height as the ceiling, maybe a little bit taller than this. But so you got the natural light in here, but you didn't. Students weren't distracted by looking outside. And, you know, it'd be more difficult for an intruder to get in there. But
Well.
You got it.
As a former state tactical trainer and prison inspector, I think safety is one of the most important things for this community and for the kids. One of the only ways to secure most of your doors and exterior doors, you gotta have a centralized brain, an electronic thing that automatically, with the push of a button, electronically locks every single door coming in and out of this building. Not little alarms like that that's gonna sound off, and you're not gonna hear it 4 hallways over. Also, there's other things you could do with the glass. There's mesh that can go into the glass. Sure, the glass is still gonna break, but that's still gonna prevent somebody from coming in a window or a door with that mesh. But
Is that expensive?
people, what's that?
Is the mesh like $3?
No.
You needed to pass before we
There's,
talked about design.
well, I'm just saying, safety should be the most important thing for
Amen.
That was one of the guiding principles too, so.
Yeah. Is anybody else, Miss Cheryl, that had a hand up, or you ready to venture on? Everybody all right?
Yeah, we gotta move on.
If I could mention one
Yes, sir.
thing too, just as we said at the top of the time here, we will leave that survey open. So for those of you who did speak with other community members and didn't get a chance to log that, we encourage you to do that. In the homework that was sent out, and if somebody didn't get it, let us know afterwards and we'll make sure that you do. But there is a link to survey, QR code, all that stuff. Go ahead and do add those thoughts and comments, because that will all get incorporated for the issues on the 4th, just to continue to fill out that picture. So please do that.
All right, so I always come to you every week with updates, and I got a few of the day for you. I had a lot of personal emails over the last week or so about, you know what, Mr. Noel, we're getting there, and I appreciate that, but we need more apples to apples in these plans. Like there's some things missing. Maybe there's one in this plan but not in the other. So we spent a lot of time this week, and the one that really came up was, hey, if you don't want to put Mr. Noel in $1.3 million place, where are you going to put him, and what's it going to cost? And actually, that's a good question. So we taxed TDA to come up with that, with a few other things as well. Let's go to the top here. So if my people end up at Hilltop, and we need to do some renovations over there. It's about $383,000. So we're gonna put that in the plans all the way through. Does that make sense? So you're gonna see it every time this comes up, if this is where we land.
And that's not renovating the whole building, that's assuming some reconfiguration and updates to the space that you'll need in that building.
Yeah, we got about 8 or 10 of my people that would end up being over there, yes.
What happens to the rest of the building?
That's a very good question. And once again, that's a Board of Education decision probably moving forward. Okay? I don't know what it gets used for. Okay? Hilltop. We had a lot of people say, no, hold on now. You talked to us about Shields Road and dollars that you're gonna have to spend to fix the road up there with ODOT. What happens here at Hilltop? That's a great question. So I reached out to my friends at MS Consultants. Good people. They do traffic studies for a living. And I didn't get them on board to do a traffic study at Hilltop, but they gave me some good information anyway. God bless them. And I want to give credit to Steve Preston. I don't know if anybody knows Steve. Great guy. He gave me information that I needed to come up with this dollar amount for you. Because we can't put more kids at Hilltop and not do something. Plain and simple. So long story short, what he told me, and then another guy named Ryan Bush, who I think is more of the engineer there. He said, it's going to be about $500,000 worth of construction to do something with Hilltop Boulevard. Fees, other things that have come into play. He gave me a high number, being conservative, of $1 million to get that Hilltop Boulevard area up and running if we put more kids on that site. So you're going to see that all the way through every time Hilltop's mentioned as having more elementary kids on site as well. Okay? So we put the money out there for Shields, remember? Obviously not as much here, but that was the number that our friends from MS Consultants gave us. Yes, ma'am.
Does the city, since it's an existing city road, do they pick up anything with that?
Paying for it?
Yeah, do they partner with us for any of that?
That is an option, but not a requirement. And my friends from MS Consultants said, basically, it's on your tab.
Got it.
Now, I'll reach out and ask for some help, but it's probably on us. So Shields Road, another good question. Hey, how we get utilities out there? Actually, there's some really good news here. Really good news. Let's talk about water. So I talked to a guy named Lou Zarella. Brand new job for about a year. Great guy, Canfield guy. He says, you ain't got to tell me nothing about the property. I already know. And I know what you're going to ask me. Okay? I said, well, that's good. There would be Youngstown Water. And I know we talked about ABC Water a few weeks back. That's incorrect. ABC Water doesn't even get in this line of work. He informed me. It's Youngstown Water coming from the north, coming down. There is a fire hydrant just north of Coco's Pizza. Good pizza, by the way. I'll put a plug in there for Mr. Coco while I'm here. So, what we would have to do is run a water line from there to the Shields Road property. It's $1 million a mile. Here's the good news. We're 1,500 feet away. That's it. 1,500 feet. So that $500,000's a little on the high end, but that's half of the mile. Okay? So Lou said, hey, $500,000, we feel good getting you the water. Youngstown Water, coming from the north. Now, my homework assignment that TDA gave me that I wasn't able to get done, unfortunately, was the sewer. I talked to a great guy named Pat, okay, who's the head man in the sanitary department. Here's what he told me, though. He said, Joe, I got good news for you. The sewer is already right across the street. It's already there. I said, that is good news, sir. He also said it's on the southwest corner of the property, which is also good news. So all we got to talk about now is the capacity of the building. So I sent him all that stuff, and I know he's going to come through for me. And I probably should check my email before I go home. But I don't have a number here. But the good news is it's already on site. So real good news for that Shields Road property. We talked a little bit about some potential purchase at Hilltop. Don't have a real good update. Yes, sir. Mr. Madison, question.
What about electricity and gas?
Don't know that.
Well, those are utilities
Yeah.
also.
I'm assuming it's there, I'm assuming electric's out there. I don't know, is anybody?
I'm sure that
Okay,
there's-
you know what, our utilities guy, talk to me, what do you got?
So if you build on Shields Road, there's Dominion gases up there. If you go out by the Sonic Club, they have a take station over there. I know it goes in both directions.
Okay.
We work with them. It's on Hilltop or middle school, or it's Columbia Gas that I work for. If Mr. Knoll wants to deal with it, you could probably get an average load for a new school of the size we're talking to. You can work with me or and get in contact. We do preliminary cost estimates for new schools all the time. So what they do is we'll go into our computer system, collect how much you're going to use, how much it's going to cost. We'll put our cost in, does its magic and spits out what the cost would be to the school district. I'm assuming Dominion probably has something similar in place.
Yes, I sent the individual, I put you on the email and him that handles that type of account for Dominion. So, that was maybe a month ago. So you could probably reach out to him again, Bill Ritter.
Bill, okay, yeah, okay. That's good, I appreciate that, guys, thank you. And we talked about that last one. I hadn't heard that, to be honest with you. Some of you have asked me, what does pre-K mean? I said it means what we have now. But what I'm hearing is people think we're starting a preschool in the Canfield Local School District, and that directive has not been given to me by the board yet. That's a big directive, by the way. But so we're just going to take that
What's
off.
the Reese property you skipped over?
Good idea.
Yeah, I said I don't have too much of an update.
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't have much of an update on that. So, but we'll take care of the pre-K. So we're just going to go like K4, K8, moving forward. Okay. All right, so we had two good questions, and the gentleman that asked it didn't hear tonight, but I recruited my treasurer. All right, so she's going to answer the hard ones. I'm going to take care of the easy ones. So the question was this. So, like, how much can you, like, borrow? Okay, so right now, what's called a special needs bonding cap. Okay, when I called Mr. Maloff, and by the way, we have attorneys that do this for a living, all right? He gave us a number about $106 million. That's not finalized yet. Very complicated, but it's not finalized. But he said, if you're going to hog tie me, put me in the corner and make me answer it today, which I said I am, $106 million. That is our bonding cap. So the question became this. Let's say we segment like a new 5 through 8 building, and let's say it's $60 million. What does that do to that bonding cap? Can we come back in 2 years or 3 years, right, and ask for the rest? Okay, you ready? Here's my lovely assistant, Miss Patty Prince, to answer that question. Miss Treasurer, you're on.
Okay, what you need to do is, let's just say it's $106 million now, special needs bonding cap, we qualify for that. When you take $50 million away, you can't just go back in 5 years and say, well, there's $56 million left. You have to again qualify for special needs, or there's just a maximum 9% of your valuation debt limit, but we would be over that in just a short period of time. 5 years, we wouldn't be paying down the debt. So that's like $65 million, which right now, you could go for $65 million and not even need to qualify for that special needs bonding cap. But down the road, you have to assess everything again. Special needs is based on your valuation increases over a period of time. It's a calculation they do. They won't even have the results until the end of May, beginning of June, to see if it really is $106 million. I don't know if that answers your question. Is that?
Yeah, because that's, I was a little leery. People were saying, hey, no big deal, we'll just come back in a year or two and just say we need to rest. And I knew enough about the special needs, but I don't want to get myself in trouble. So I said, just hold on. But that was the question and a good answer. Does that make sense? I know that's kind of real high-level stuff there. It's really complicated, like the assessed evaluation and 9% rule. But her point was, legally, we could borrow $63 million, no questions asked, based on our assessed evaluation. You get over that, you get that qualifying, because the state doesn't let you go crazy. So, question in the back. Yes, sir.
So based on last levy, it was a 6.9.
It was 6.9 mil, I believe. Yes, sir?
Waiting a year and a half has gone up with less money being borrowed.
Well, we're going to talk about that next. Are you jumping to my next bullet point? Okay, here we
I
go.
think it's something to be
So,
said.
okay, we ready? All right, so we tried to get a number for you as we sit here today. All right, so, now I think this was a question last week and it came up again today, like what do I tell people, okay? Because really, and I don't know if that was Miss Rupert that said this, I don't know if people care about mills, really, and how much it is, how much it's going to cost me, right? That's what this comes down to. So here's what I put up, a scenario. Let's say we put a $100 million bond issue on. I got bad news for you. Last time the bond issue was on, we were in the right place at the right time with interest rates. Them days are gone. Sad. Last time it was 3.7. They are estimating 5.25 for every bond issue that's coming on in May. That's what the pros are telling us. Not good news, but that's where we're at. 100 million bond at 5.25, it's about 7.5 mils is what would show up on the ballot. It's a 36-year term. Now, Treasurer, correct me if I'm wrong, it could be 36 or 37, but there's variables in there, and you know this better than anybody, and we can speak to it if you want, but it's maybe kind of trust me on this one, 36, 37. So if you have a $100,000 appraised market value, it's $262.50 a year for a $100,000 home. So if I have a $200,000 home, I take that 262, multiply by, okay? All right, and you work your way up. You get to Mr. Ramos' home, you know, she's like at about $1 million or something. So you got to multiply that by a whole bunch of numbers, see? All right, and I'm being facetious, I know Mr. Ramos from way back. Does that help you?
Be clear, that's not Zillow, that's the county.
Well, you know what, and that's a good point. Yeah, please don't go to joesbarngrill.com to get your market value of your home. You would recommend the county auditor site, right? And when you go on there, you can put in something Lydia Drive, and it will pop up, and there's a number there, right, Miss Treasurer, that you can use to assess that. Some treasurers, like in Stark County, when bond issues come up, they would actually have a little thing there that would say, here's how much it cost you. I don't know if our county auditor, did he do that for us? Last time he did, awesome. So when we get there, we'll ask him to do the same thing. If you're a Canfield resident and this bond issue is going to affect you, there'll be a little box there where you'll say, this is how much it's going to cost Mr. No. Okay? Yes, sir.
Can you explain the millage, the 7.5?
Like, how do we calculate that?
What it is, I just don't fully understand.
Well, that's two of us, but we have the treasurer in the room. We have the treasurer in the room. Now put this in English for us, okay? Because Patty gets real good here with this treasurer, but give me the English version. What's it mean?
Well, it's 0.1% of your valuation is how they figure millage. It's kind of crazy, and actually, the ballot language this time, the legislature came up with new ballot language that you're going to see some stuff that's supposed to make it more user-friendly when you read it.
Not even close.
But I don't know, have you, I haven't seen the new language.
I've seen it, but I haven't been bored enough to read it yet.
Yeah.
Mr. Noel, I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, two things. One, you know, I think I've shared this out loud here, shared this with you. I cringe when I see these numbers because, you know, people didn't vote when it was $241 per $100,000 house. Now we're asking them for more money, and I feel like, and for a longer term, they don't
No, the
care.
terms was shorter.
It was, I thought it was 30 years?
I think it was 37. It was 37,
Okay,
actually.
okay,
So
sorry,
we're
sorry.
saying.
Okay, so, I feel like, you know, we're going back to the voters, and the voters spoke clearly, and we're going back to them and saying, we're putting this on, but we don't care what you said. That's what I feel like so I'm concerned about that, but also, when we talk about the valuation of the appraised market value, I don't know this answer to this, but I'm hearing that the houses are gonna be appraised again in Tony County, and that they're gonna go up as much as 25%. When is that appraised? When's that appraised?
Oh, there's a triennial and a 6. Where are we at? Which one's coming next and when?
I don't know that offhand, but House Bill 920, you won't see an increase just because your valuation went up. So they reduce your effective tax rate.
So just because our property values are going up, we're not gonna see an increase in taxes?
Only an inside millage, which is a small portion of it.
If you think about it, everybody's prices are going up, but the bill to the loan company is the same amount. So if we had all that, it would just be extra money. You can't just take extra money from the taxpayer, so your effective per 100,000 will go down because everybody's property goes up.
And everybody's paying.
That's the
into-
simplest way to put it.
Yeah, you're right, because everybody's
Thank you.
paying into it.
Because then all the values go up and all of a sudden
Right.
schools get out.
Yeah, and they can't take excess money, so it has to go back and just lower the amount.
A swear word is House Bill 920 for superintendents. That's a swear word. 1970s, I won't blame Celeste on that, but he was the man. All right, how we doing? So I hope that's helpful. I tried to answer some of the questions from last week. We have another question, Mr.
Yes,
Madden.
the fact that we can't go back to the voters in so many years for another bond issue, does that mean that segmenting is kind of off the table?
No, I'm not, first of all, I'm not saying that we can't go back. We
Yeah.
just have to be careful to say, oh, hey, no big deal, in 4 years, we're gonna ask again. We need to know that there's some protocols and procedures.
Basically, they're
Okay, so you gotta be careful, yeah, and I don't even wanna say 10 years, okay, I don't, but, so Stacy, the financial part of is, we just gotta be careful, we can't make any guarantees. The other part of it is, what's the community gonna say then? And I get it, if you ask for money now, can you really ask for more money in 5 years, you know? And that's the other piece of the puzzle, and that's something, you know, that we gotta hash out. We gotta hash that out.
I mean, do you have a plan for, do you have a way of getting the feedback that maybe before the levy, where you might realize, you know what, there's just, I'm getting the response is, this will not pass, we need to.
Well, that's why we did our homework last week. That's why we're gonna have this community activity again. Okay, I mean, those are opportunities for us to hear what people are saying.
Okay.
Yep.
We got all summer.
That's the
Because
goal.
I'm hearing a lot of negative on the money. And I'm not like last levy, I'm not putting it out there the way I was, because I'm a little, the plans, it's just a lot, so I'm just kind of putting information out, this is when this is when that is. Without my, I'm trying, without my opinion, of the school shooting, I put my opinion out there, we need to talk about safety, but, I hope we have one more meeting, so if it comes after the 4th, which sadly I work, but is there a way to, when are you going to decide, like, okay, you know what, there's just no way we can do a big ask, or, yes, I have a good feeling this will pass, like, when will that?
On April the 6th, our next meeting, this committee is charged to give a recommendation to the Board of Education. And you're gonna recommend one of those master plans.
So
The
they're
board,
all
the
very
board will answer your question. The board will say, okay, and I'm just gonna make this up, okay, I'm gonna call it master plan number 20, okay? We don't have that one. If the board, if you say master plan 20 goes to the board, and it looks like this, and there's an option to segment, those 5 board members, and us as well, have a little bit of input, they're gonna decide, do we take the entire recommendation and go at 100 million, or whatever, or do we segment? And they're gonna make that decision based on input they get, data we've collected. Remember, we did a little survey thing about, we talked about, do we pull it out or not? Do we segment? We have those numbers. All that stuff I'm gonna throw at the board and say, it's game time, make a decision. They will have the final say. Are we all in at whatever Master Plan 20 is? And if there's an option to segment, because remember, some of the plans don't have that option, right? One plan, I think it's Master Plan 1, has an option to segment, okay?
I mean, they're
That's
all
on the board.
so high, it just feels like these are dream plans, that's how it feels.
I
These are
understand.
great.
And there's
Or
been
maybe referral
a couple of you
plans.
that have decided that, right? But this committee is not charged to make that decision. And I know we're jumping the next week, and I apologize, because we've talked about this, but here's my lead, okay? When we met 5 years ago, all right, we talked about the vision and the goal of this group. It was to come up with a comprehensive facilities plan for the district. And the colonel, who's not here, made that comment last week, and I wanted to give him a high five, but I didn't. But he's right on. So next week, if that's where we're at, next week, that's your charge. Okay, you come up with the master plan, okay, that we come up with as a group, as a consensus, okay? Whichever one of them three it is. And then we put it on the board's lap and we say, okay, here's all the data, here's what we know, it's your call, those 5 people. Okay, but that's the charge of this committee when it's all said and done. I know I jumped ahead, didn't I?
Later.
Ms. Sheriff. We gotta let Mr. Hadley talk. All
I've
right.
done a lot of listening and I appreciate
Yeah.
all the feedback. I've been just excited to hear everybody going out to the community and doing what they were asked to do, so thank you for all of that. And I definitely hear Jill and I hear you, Kim, about the cost. I think cost at 50 million or 100 million is going to be concerning to people because it's just more money on taxes. It goes back to what I was listening to. It's incumbent upon us as a facilities committee, when we come out of this with whatever decision we're aligned to and what the board decides, that we're the boots on the ground to help educate, because it's going to require a lot of education as to why we got to where we got and why this number, whatever number it's going to cost, is worth the investment and worth the taxpayer voting yes. So, I mean, because if we come out of here divided, and then we're not giving the aligned message to help get it to the finish line, that's going to be a challenge for us. And I'm hoping, I've reinforced it on multiple occasions, I'll continue to reinforce it today, that if your idea doesn't float to the top or didn't float to the top, but the consensus and the majority of the committee came to a decision, that we can all align to it and support it and be behind it, because we only can win when we're united as one and we are doing it for the right reasons. So I just leave you with that, and I think we'll get to that.
Mr. Atwood, I'd like to ask a question then. I mean, I'm out there talking to all these retired people, okay? And when they sit there and say to me, I cannot afford this, I cannot afford this, how do you respond to them? I'm a people person, right? I work in a field of working with people, trying to be empathetic to their situations. You can't argue with them about that.
You can't, and
You
those
can't.
people are probably going to vote no, Jill. And
But I'm saying,
open to
I'm worried that
accepting
they
it.
are the majority. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm being empathetic to those people because I hear them. And I'm concerned for them
empathetic too
because
as
they're
well. And
concerned.
I don't think we're not empathetic. We know, like I said, 50 million, 10 million, whatever increase in taxes is a burden on people. I'm not disputing that. It's a matter of, again, just explaining why we got to what we got and saying you have the right to vote no. You do. But this is why we got to where we got, because the other piece is, I mean, people that said we need to have a maintenance plan. Part of me says, how many people live in a 100-year-old house? We got good use out of that middle school. It was well before I was even born, and we've extended that life to that middle school for as long as we have. But I think there will be a maintenance plan and a preventative, amount of money that we'll allocate to be able to do that. So we'll be ahead of it, but, we can't look back at how the previous 100 years didn't allow for it to be a 200-year-old building. And that's where I'm.
Well, I feel like people think though that by saying that means that I'm not in support of it or whatever. That's not the case. I'm just saying that, I'm trying to be empathetic to those people, and you can't, no matter what, I cannot educate those people. Because they make up a good portion of our community.
Can someone do the math for me? If we asked for 60 million, what would that look like monthly?
Well, let's go back to the slide. Go back to 100 million. Okay, cut that in half. Yeah, so 50 million is about 131 a month.
Look, if we
It's 131 a month.
It's 77 million, it's 202 a month.
A year.
77 million.
A year.
So if you want to go per 100,000.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
After we come up with reach consensus.
Yes.
A week from today, yes?
Yes, that's our goal.
And we make our proposal to the board.
Yes.
When will we as a group find out what the board decides? And will we reconvene to start putting together our plan for selling our proposal to the
Yes, so
public?
the goal is April 19th. April 19th's board meeting, that's the goal for the board to.
So that's when we'll find out then?
Yes, that's when you're gonna find out. And you're not gonna go anywhere. You are hired for the next 18 months. Because if I'm here coaching this thing up, you're coming.
For maintenance and
All
everything.
right? So you signed up for this
Thank you in
committee.
advance.
You didn't read the fine print. You didn't read the fine print that said not only this committee, but the other important one, the bond levy committee. See? Bond levy committee. Big committee. Miss Cheryl, how are we doing on time for this? A quarter
Well,
out? Are we okay?
should be good if we
Okay.
get the next
Okay,
couple.
well, you take over, you run the show here, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Do we want to do one last question?
I got a comment. I have a friend at the county, so next year is the revaluation. Next year,
There you go, thank you, sir.
okay? So,
That was a statement.
Yeah, that wasn't a question.
Mine's really important for the voting of next meeting.
Back in the right,
Oh, they can't see you.
Oh, yeah.
yes, yeah.
Thank you. I want to kind of turn a little bit ahead to the community meeting. Will there be a realtor, financial institution available for folks to talk to break down the estimated cost to the homeowner? Because I think that's a really important key, especially since the cost is very important. So I'm wondering.
I have a realtor, a financial banker, a stock investor, she's right there. She'll be there to answer those questions.
And we're just,
And is that a good transition?
it is, because
Okay.
we're gonna take you through the information quickly. I mean, we've got 10 minutes left or so. We want to take you into the information that we are planning to present. And again, if there's additional information you think that would be helpful for folks, we can bring that up and incorporate that. But again, we've talked about this, again, April 4th, trying to get as many people in as possible. The idea also throughout this meeting, we'll look at the boards, is to get both a quantitative gauge on what the public who's coming in prefers as far as a master plan goes, and then also qualitative. So they'll have an option to add sticky notes, kind of comments that way, so that that can be compiled as well. And I think we looked at this last time, but again, open house, it's in the middle school gym, so we'll have a series of stations set up, and then all of you, or whoever is able to make it, can be there as representatives. We talked about doing name tags, so we can give you a name tag so that folks understand, you know, you are a part of the committee and that you can speak, you know, on behalf of your experience there as well. And then folks from our team will be there as well to answer questions, and then I know for the district also. So again,
Ryan, I have 20 packs of 10. If you want to take something home to hand out, you're more than welcome. Okay, I'm just going to leave them right here. So there are packs of 10 if you want them before you go home.
Thank you.
Yep, so that information will be available, but again, the idea is that we'll be greeting people at the door, and then we'll take a look at some kind of rough templates that we've started as boards for that, and they'll get a handout like an 8.5 by 11 that sort of describes the process. It kind of breaks down in short form what was in the homework packet. So again, as you're walking in, you can kind of understand what that process is. It outlines the master plans off on the right-hand side. And then kind of with that information, folks will be able to go in, and then you'll see the various stations set throughout. So the information will look something similar to this. There will probably be an online component as well, similar to how we've logged information. You know, we'll create an online form where folks who come in will have opportunity to do that. If they don't have computers, internet, that sort of thing, we'll provide space on the back where if they have questions either about the process or about the plan itself, they can write that down and hand it in to us, and then we'll shape through some of that information as well. But again, just outlining some key terms, probably some photos of all of us working on this stuff, the master plan options, how it was developed, a little bit about the cost estimations, so again, folks can understand where those numbers are derived from. We've all been listening to it for months, but again, just someone kind of coming in off the street so they can see that. So they'll get a handout. And the way that we're shaping the boards up, so each of these stations will have at least 3 of these. So master plan option A, I mean, once folks come in, you know, 1, 2, and 7 aren't really going to make sense. We're not presenting all 8, so it's ABC at this point, right? And so from henceforward, it'll be ABC after the 4th. What we want to do is present the scope of work. So it's kind of the bullet list items of what's going on. That would include the abatement and demolish plans, you know, any extra LFIs that are being included, and then the scope of the buildings there. We're going to provide a cost breakdown on that board as well, so you can see kind of a percentage, just a different graphical way for people to perceive that. So it's like the majority of the cost is going towards, you know, a K4, and then the 5/8. So you can, again, see how that breaks down, the abatement cost, board offices, any of the other LFIs. There will be a timeline for each of those, so if they're running concurrently, it'll kind of be the same. But then again, you can see where that demolishment, abatement, the construction with some years, so folks can have just kind of a rough cost, you know, rough idea in their mind of when they could expect these buildings to open. a spot for them to vote, and then some of the site considerations that we all have discussed here. So kind of breaking down from some of those pros and cons, things to be aware of, swing spaces included, all of those details. So again, just trying to get a fuller picture of that. And then, of course, the sites. We will include the preliminary costs here, and then going off of the numbers that the treasurer came up with, we'll include the cost per $100,000 per month for the homeowner. So again, looking at this board, that person can get a snapshot of what each one of these is and then compare against it. There will be a second board next to it for pros and cons. So again, sticky notes will be provided so folks can write down thoughts, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and if there are other considerations that's kind of outside the scope of that pro and con, we'll have space to do that. So 2 boards per station. And in addition to that, I know we talked about community partnerships, and I think there were some committee members here who kind of volunteered to man that and kind of talk to folks who are coming in if they have ideas about it. So we'll have a board for space to kind of put that information. And then also the treasurer, I believe, Patty, you'll be on hand as well. And we'll put some rudimentary information about how school funding works, and then that cost breakdown per 100,000. So if folks have questions on that, then they can talk to the treasurer directly to get that information. So all in all, there's going to be about 6 stations. All of us will be there, and then whoever else from the community comes out to gather all that feedback again, so that can be compiled and then discussed on the 6th. So I know that's a lot of information. It's going to be a big event, I would imagine. And again, looking at what we've seen already, we'll get to a question in the back there just in the last couple of minutes. With what we've seen, it looks like the master plans 1 and 2 have kind of been neck and neck. But again, opening it up to a broader section of the community to see where their preferences fall as well. Was there a question in the back? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. I've been to all of these meetings. I plan on being there Tuesday. I cannot be here on Thursday. I imagine with kids, work, spring break, Good Friday, that I'm not the only one that will not be able to be here on Thursday. And if there is a vote, I would like to be included in that vote.
Gotcha.
Is there a way to include the entire committee on that vote?
I think it's a good point, and we can certainly make that, yeah.
It is always.
But that doesn't mean you can just all skip out now. You still need to be here.
Must be present.
Kim?
Right, when you list, the abatement of schools, if I were coming in here not knowing, just looking,
Yep.
I would think, oh, it's for sure decided, these schools will be ripped down, and that's the end of it. So is there a way to, because I don't trust myself to put my opinion on there. Because, we all know certain about Hilltop, but is there, how do we, I feel like when they see the abatement on there, they think it's decided, it'll be grassy stay.
Right. And I think in the handout, and I think it's incumbent on all of us, like we've been talking about, these are, preferred plans, these are plans that we're exploring. I don't think until the board decides on it that anything is final. And I think when we're explaining that to community members, like this is what we as a committee have worked on and put together and is our recommendation, it's not necessarily a final decision because that ultimately rests with the board.
And the other key part is, if you don't put those dollars in the plan and you have to abate demo, we don't have the money to do it, and then that building sits there for the next 20 years with nobody maintaining it. And that's a good answer to the community, because that's the one thing nobody wants to have in Canfield, is a 100 or any 80 whatever year old building that we don't do anything with and nobody owns it, and this is rotting away. So that might help some of those people too. You gotta put it in.
Chris?
Sorry, that's not really a question, it's maybe an ask. Can treasurer or you guys send out an email or put it on the website on how, like we were talking earlier, the taxes you're gonna pay on, it's not your Zillow estimated, it's actually significantly less. Is there a way before that number gets up there that a little blurb can be put out to us so when we talk to people or they come to the website, they can be like, oh, I can go to the county website, look at this number, and translate that to what I'm gonna pay?
That could be on the sheet when they walk in the door,
Yep.
right?
It's a good point. That would be included on the board, the finance board, but we'll make sure to include it on the sheet that's handed out and then it makes its way to the website.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
To add on to what you said, can we set something up, because I know there's a lot of people that don't know the difference or know how to look up the actual county value of their homes. Can we have somebody set up and somebody can go
I'll do
say,
it.
this is my address.
Let's volunteer.
All of the middle school kids didn't do it.
Just, all you gotta do is take a laptop in there, just someone give you
I
address.
know your house was $160,000.
Yeah,
Seventh station, right there, seventh station, thanks, Lex.
Bring a device with you,
Yep.
we'll set you up.
I'll bring a couple.
Sir.
Attaboy.
So, a suggestion I'd like to make here, and I got people in front of me and behind me. The majority of people who go in to vote are not going to go in to vote based upon facts or logic. They're going to go in and they're going to vote based upon emotion, okay? And a lot of people that I talk to are going to be very angry with the amount of money in here. Now, I've been thinking a lot on this, and here's something I think that we can go around with on that, is the people in Canfield, our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation sacrificed and voted yes to build CH in the 1960s. This school, when was Hilltop built? In the 70s, okay? Then you were around to make those decisions then to sacrifice to say, we need a new school, we need a CH Campbell, we need a new high school, we need a new elementary school. And I think the emotion can come to say to those people, it's now our turn to pay forward. It's our turn in appreciation and gratitude for the generations that came before us that gave us these schools, for us to now give schools to kids not yet born based upon, again, in gratitude and appreciation and honor of our parents and our grandparents who gave us these schools.
Paul's the guest speaker. The guest speaker. Let's see no better than that.
Last point,
Well
because
said.
it's important, I had some neighbors that have been like, why wouldn't, yes, Lex, I'm not gonna go to that, I already want to vote yes. I said, no, we need your voice. Like, the opposition is organized, they're very loud in social media, they drown out a lot of other things. You need to have the support that you can see in a room. When that little news thing pans out and sees the separation of the room, which is bound to happen, that there are a lot of people here that do support it. So I think you need to make sure it's not just the people that are like, well, I don't know if they know they're gonna vote yes, come in and see why.
One last detail I'll mention about the evening, I think it goes without saying, but again, there's no general sort of formal presentation, so folks can come in whenever they want, they can leave whenever they want. So if they come in at 7:50, they'll still get the information they need, and again, in an attempt to grab as many folks as possible, but just for that. I know we're coming close on time, but just a few last ones.
Just the difference between asking the public and just a point to make if someone says, that's a lot of money, I can't afford $21 a month. The difference between that 106 million and 70 million is $4 and some change. So that's the point that needs to be made when someone says, that's too much a month, I can't afford it. And they say, but I would, I would vote for a lesser levy. Okay, but that's only $4 a month.
And guess what, when you go back in 10 years, because you have to fix the school you didn't, it's gonna be twice as much.
Yep. Green jacket?
Yeah, so I live in Canfield and my kids are going to Canfield. And I feel like because of the teachers and the staff here, I got a private school education at a public school price. And I know my kids are getting a private school education at a public school price. So whatever the increase in taxes are is less expensive. It's a good dollar value because I'm getting a good dollar value for the education. It's less expensive than sending my kids to private school. And that's why I chose to move back here, was 100% because of the quality of the education. Thanks to the teachers and staff. And we owe it to the teachers and staff and the kids to make the buildings sufficient for them.
It's a really good point. All right. I think that's it. And with that commentary, we will see you all April 4th, or at least those of you who can make it.
Grab some flyers if you need them.
Do we have any information?
No, but we have to figure out how people vote.